All right, so I guess we have everybody here except Joe and Jackie. So Jackie is aware, so maybe she'll chime in later. But uh, um, this is again the anti-hate task force meeting of the Black and African American cohort. This is Thursday, October the 12th, and we're starting this meeting at about 7:07 p.m. Um, First off, Selena, did we ever get the video from the last meeting?
No, it didn't record for whatever reason.
Oh, really? Okay. So is it necessary for us to provide some kind of um, minutes,
I think
some in written format?
Lisa sent some of her notes.
We'll not do it then. So, um, so we are roughly 14 days away from delivering a presentation, oral albeit, to the council. And as we all know, we discussed some of what we think should go in it during our last meeting, which wasn't recorded. But we did kind of discuss some of the content. And I think one of the most salient things I heard from that meeting was that we already had some of this done by Lisa, and Lisa did a presentation before the NAACP. Did you want to expound on that, Lisa? Because I think you sent over that doc and some slides. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to access the slides. I don't know what happened there. So
yeah, I mean,
unmute
the
it.
template.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. What's happening here? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just shared in a meeting with NAACP. I did a PowerPoint about the process in general, and then had a general conversation about racism in the schools.
Mhm.
So, and I shared that with everyone, so they should have been able to. You said you didn't get to see it, or did you get it?
Maybe it's just me. I got your email, but I didn't see the slides. And I think I emailed you back asking, was it recorded in some way? Not knowing that you actually did you did a PowerPoint? Is that what it was?
Yeah, Selena, can
With
you
slides?
make me co-host?
I
Who?
actually was able to see it, so I'm not certain why you weren't able to see it, but I was able to see it. So
No, I can share it with you all now. Selena, can you make me co-host?
you should be a co-host.
And let me see what I got here. There I go. I am now a co-host. Muchas gracias.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, what can you guys see? Let me make my screen pretty.
Yeah.
Full screen.
Mhm.
Full screen. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a presentation I made for NAACP. And we can adapt it from this, but this was a general discussion about these are the questions that I asked some of the parent leaders to answer, but also to bring back to their constituents to see whether or not they could have individualized discussions. Because ideally we have parent reps at all the schools. I know we have some vacancies, but for the most part, we have a healthy number of parent reps who then have their own meetings with their own schools to talk about issues of the time. And this is one of the things that we talked about is, can you talk about racism and the parents in your school, their experience with it. And then I just do an introduction about how this came about. So we have that, and identify who was in this task force and how they were affiliated. And then I talked about why we're doing this and how we're going to go about providing to one end. So we're talking about these issues again, and how we're going to make our talk into a report with recommendations. And then I did a timeline for the different meetings so that people knew, and I invited them all to come to the meetings because they're public. As you can see, ours is going to be on the 26th. And I know that the Latino community had to reschedule. So I guess one of the questions I have for Selena is, when do we know, do they have a new date?
November 16.
Excellent. So we can put that in. This will be different because this is a different crowd. And that's about some of the facts that I know from working with the police department about the increase in hate crimes, particularly as it affects the Black and African American community, and that it has doubled. And that if you look at the incidency report, the hate bias report, she shows 74% of the incidents had to do with anti-Black African American. And then, so when I had the conversation, I wanted to start with the questions and also end with the questions so that we could talk a little bit more about it. And then one of my favorite quotes is from Nelson Mandela, adopted from actually an author. So I reached out to Selena today and asked her if there was a format that we had to follow, because I noted that the two previous presentations, the one from the Muslim community and from the Jewish cohort, both tended to be similar. And so I wanted to know a little bit about the process. And then I can help write the presentation for this, but I think I need to know, you shared your Google Doc, but it was locked. And so we can never get access to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't see your request come back, Lisa, but you made a request to go in? So I'll go back and look at my laptop and try. I wasn't able to do it from my cell phone for some reason, so, but I have to get on my laptop and do that.
As we are discussing, the presentation, I did want to share something I was playing around with, because that's just what I do. Y'all already know that. I'm always doing something. And I wanted to share that, if at all possible, Selena, with the group. So maybe we can kind of blend the three of our presentations in some way together. And actually, I'm going to try to join from a different device. That would be better if I could. So let me see what I can do here.
But Tiffany, mine wasn't a presentation on behalf. It wasn't to do the presentation for the task force. It was just doing outreach to the NAACP. So my presentation is not.
Oh, no. Right.
It's just this. I just wanted to share what I was doing on our behalf.
Oh, definitely. I got it.
Yeah, but I did want to ask you, Lisa,
Yeah,
you guys did a great presentation back in June with MCPS partners through the Hate and Violence Committee that you chair. Would any of that content be relevant to what we're doing?
So the answer is yes. I was dreaming about this presentation actually, and I thought about all the different ways that the Committee Against Hate Violence has touch points. So certainly we have a member of MCPS with an ex officio position on our committee, and they often do presentations and have shared stuff. I think Selena has also provided reports, but so the answer to your question is yes and yes. And so I think we need to frame up like, essentially what, I think we talked about this last time about the different communities we need to talk about. And that one would be obviously the schools. I think we should talk about the police, and then the county as a whole, the other services that may be provided. And so I definitely have all the information we can do about schools. I have a lot of information about police. Don't know that I have it from a community perspective, because again, in addition to having the ex officio member from the MCPS, we also have a police presence on the committee. So I know very well what's happening because they share the data every month. And so those are the two ways, the resources I have. Dealing largely with the community, I think Tiffany's in a better place to help with the community. She also has a lot of information for schools, and so does Joseph. And so I know just from the conversations, they could add value to those slides.
Yeah, I think from the listening session too, that Tiffany did a great job helping us with, that we should be able to graph a lot of good information from that. And I think just with MCPS alone, we got a lot, and certainly it's going to behoove us, I believe, to prioritize what we're going to pull out and present. We're also going to hear from, Reverend Boney Reverend Boney did a survey with the faith-based community, Black Ministers Conference in particular. And so there's some good information to glean from that, and then figure out how we also, you know, synthesize and use that as well. I don't know if we have enough.
You introduced that. So yeah, we got our last survey results today. We have a total of 47 pastors, ministers, and church folks that did fill out the survey. So we have that, and also I've been putting together some material, beginning to work on slides for you know, who are we? We saw that in each of the presentations we've had so far, a description of who we are as a community, and also looking at a couple. I started working on slides on history as well. And I will have something to share soon.
Yeah.
Okay, but I want to, I'm going to hold us to the fire here, because our last conversation was that soon would have been by now. And I appreciate that, because I was a little nervous. But our last conversation, our last meeting, we were supposed to get things back a week and a half ago. So I guess we need to start putting pen to paper and having a framework for what we're going to say. Because
the last conversation, you know, we talked about
excuse me,
an outline that I sent out. So
interject. Excuse me, if I could interject. I would like to show what I've been thinking about as a supplement to this conversation, if at all possible.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right. The conversation just kept going on, and I just wanted to share this. Just humor me. This is nothing that I would present, but I think it can add a bit of a layer of something, and then we can continue with our discussion. So let's see here. What do we got? Y'all gotta excuse me. I have people messaging me. Are y'all able to see my screen? Not yet, probably.
not yet.
Okay. Okay. What about now?
Yes.
All right, cool. Where is my, here we go. So y'all just humor me. It's not great, but you'll get it.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Okay.
I like it too. Go ahead.
I don't hear anything. I hope it plays. I hear nothing. May have to go back to my other device. I tell you, this Wi-Fi is not good. I'm in a bad place.
Tiffany, did you have any collaboration from any other committee members on this piece, or this is just your piece?
Oh, this is my brain talking to me and what I'm thinking. I'm gonna see if I can work. Just to add a layer of something, because I always try to be thoughtful of our audience. I'm thinking about people that are older and younger, may have, you know, a learning impairment, or may have an issue with their sight, or, you know, I just try to be thoughtful. And this doesn't want to work. I don't know why.
Tiffany, it's all
so
set. Tiffany, it looks like it's all set. It just needs something to say play.
Yes.
You got it set. So I don't know what technically that means.
So I'm gonna go to another device and see if that'll work.
Okay.
Something just does not like me today. It just does not like me. So I'm gonna stop my share, and I'm gonna come over here instead and try to share. All right. Something just doesn't like me tonight, but I am in a bad spot. I'm gonna turn off my Wi-Fi and try to use my phone. This hearing is so bad.
Okay, I think we got something, Tiffany.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany Kelly. I'm co-chair of the African American and Black Cohort of Montgomery County's Anti-Hate Task Force. We were tasked to bringing forth efforts we felt could really help in combating anti-Black hate and violence in our county. Today we're going to talk about our team. We're going to talk a little bit about history, types of racism, and
Hey,
issues we
Tiffany,
have
can I
right
ask you a
now.
question? How long is this?
Our team's co-chairs are Tiffany Kelly and Ron Wright. Our members are Joseph Hooks, Lisa, Jacqueline, Stowe, Reverend Boney. Can't think of y'all last names right now. It's really important to discuss the history of Blacks in the United States, beginning with the period of enslavement in 1619, when slavery ended in 1865, Reconstruction began and suffered. We talk about things like racist, white supremacist, but what does that really mean? We first must break this down by saying there are individuals or individual acts of racism committed by racist or white supremacists, but there's also a systemic issue, white supremacy, racism. Those are not things that we readily identify. A lot of the focus on racism is on individual acts, which quite frankly are easier to identify and easier to stop. Relies on execution examples, including 2 killed by an off-duty ambulance. Well, what does that have to do with Montgomery County? Are you aware of the men that have been killed by Montgomery County police, including 2 killed by an off-duty Pentagon officer? Are you aware that we are suspending Black students and poor students at far higher rates than any other population in the county? Are you aware that the Montgomery County public school community believes that there's a problem? If you don't believe me,
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I was one of the students Mr. Williams referred to speak, and I
Okay.
had a comment and question regarding the system of reporting incidents. So I changed my Zoom name because I wanted to stay anonymous. Is it okay for me to speak?
Yes.
Okay. There have been conditions, microaggressions build up and have their efficient,
where it is believed holds the graves of African slaves, where there is construction happening right now as advocates fight to keep that land sacred as the final resting place of enslaved people in this country. So what's the fix? Considering the land, the property, the labor of enslaved people builds the case for reparations in this country to begin to try to compensate for some of the losses. Ending the school to prison pipeline. Okay, I'm not sure if you could hear me. I was talking, but y'all can hear me. I was just thinking that versus just reading data from a slide, just doing some keep folks engaged, something a bit different in our presentation could possibly be helpful.
I like it. I thought it was very creative, very powerful. I like it, and it shows our style. So I have to say, great job.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was not even right. I just threw it together to say, hey, let's just do something a little something interactive. Interactive is the word.
No, I thought it was very powerful. What do you think, Director Stowe?
Very, very creative, very creative. And because you put a disclaimer out front that we could probably look at maybe some different information, different data, but that was not the point I didn't think you were trying to share with us. I think the point you were trying to share was from a presentational style, allows there to be a very different maybe reaction to the information we'll be sharing. Is that not the case?
That is the case, Director Stowe. Yes.
Okay.
I just didn't want us to kind of be reading from something as if
Sure.
it was a report. I kind of wanted it to feel like us, just feel like something a bit different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just adding that to the conversation, just
Yep.
now we can hopefully begin to talk about some other things.
Mhm.
Well, I have a Selena question. Selena, our presentation is one part. We also have to do a written report, right?
Right, and that's due November 28th.
Yeah.
So I think
Okay.
we could do that and then do the report.
And I was going to
Okay.
add one of the things that did happen in the Muslim presentation was, I think, and maybe if we're ready to talk about two chairs, content, because I think that's the thing that will be a little difficult for us to kind of narrow down and kind of figure out, or not, but my thought is narrow down. What is it that we want to leave by way of information to those who hear the presentation? What is the impact we want to have? That might help us determine, what's in and maybe what would be great to have in, but just don't have the opportunity to have that particular topic in this particular time around. But the biggest impact, I mean, if we had to pick, and I'm saying this out loud, 3 issues that we believe predominate based upon the survey that Reverend Boney did, based upon the other data gathering that you would have learned then, Madam Chair, from this is now Lisa Taylor in her other chair hat. But at any rate, that you may have gathered in both the presentation back in June and the most recent one, the NAACP, and any other day that we will be sort of gathering in the next day or two, to sort of synthesize that into those 2 or 3 points. And that becomes what we present. And then you've got a lot of opportunity in a lot more broader approach, as you just said a minute ago, I think, Madam Chair, and looking at the written actual report that can maybe
Agreed, Director Stowe. Yes, agreed. So what do we want to put on the table?
I think this is Reverend Bonner. I think that one of the things we want to get across is that Blacks, African Americans have been and continue to be victims of institutionalized and systematic racism, discrimination, and oppression in America. Starting with the slaves that came over in 1619, but looking at how this thing has, people, some white people, when you start bringing up slavery, they say, well, that was a long time ago. How does that have
Yes, sir.
anything to do with what we're dealing with now? So there's a story that needs to be told of even after slavery ended, end of the Civil War, the Black codes that still oppressed the people, the sharecropping, that the farmers weren't given a fair share, the convict leasing system where prisoners were locked up and lent out to farms to keep the farms, tend the farms of white people, the Jim Crow laws of segregation, separate but not equal, the numerous lynchings that happened and to Black folks that between 1886 and 1967, 200 bills were presented to Congress to outlaw lynching that were rejected, were not approved by Congress. The destruction at Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where there is a systematic effort. Anytime that Black people start to succeed, you get a white group that comes in and actually destroys what they're trying to do.
So Reverend
right up to
Boney,
now with
what
the
I am,
systematic brutality and killing of Black folks by
Let him
police.
finish, please. What
what
else
I'm
is you
hearing
want?
you say, Reverend Boney, is you want to see the why we're doing this. That's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
What I think we want to show people that there is a systematic systematic institutions or actions that are continuing to enforce this system of white supremacy or white preference, not just starting from slavery, but coming all the way up through present time. And then we have our surveys, both from the Black Ministers Conference dealing with the people. We have surveys dealing with the children to show what Black people think is going on now. So yeah, I think there's a story to be told here.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Hey, Selena, I just saw your message that we're limited to 30 minutes.
Right.
But you know, you have to appreciate, I think you were on for the Muslim presentation. I think it was.
Not the whole thing. No, I wasn't actually.
Yeah, they went probably in excess of 50 minutes just on the presentation alone.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. And then the Q&A lasted another 30, 35 minutes.
Wow.
So
Let
that, I
me
mean,
ask
they
a
certainly set
question.
a different precedent in terms of time. This is a lot, and you know, I agree with Reverend Boney. A lot of this stuff needs to go in there. Certainly, we're just talking generalities right now, and then certainly we will have some content more specific, and then move to the kind of time the presentation. But is there any kind of penalty if we go overtime? I mean, is there
We get a fine. We get a fine.
what happens if we go 50 minutes?
We get a fine.
I have no idea. I mean, it hasn't come up. I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, they were,
Yeah,
and they had a lot of
hours.
good stuff too. I
They
think
were good
we'll
hours.
talk about that too, how they set theirs up. But you know, I think certainly we're going to strive to do it within 30 minutes. I think, and then certainly the written document will be the voluminous as much as we need it to be. And is there a format out yet for that, Selena? How the written document should be prepared?
There were some initial notes, and I will send those around again about, how many recommendations, but not a format per se.
Yeah, because in Muslim, they, I don't know if all of the recommendations they made first in the for MCPS and then for the faith-based and community recommendations, they were way more than 5 recommendations. I mean, combined, it might have been at least 15, at least. So I mean, I think we want to be as uniform and in concert with what you have asked for, the council has asked for. But is there some kind of need for us to let you know if we go over time or do more than the recommended recommendations? Selena, unmute yourself. Yeah.
I'll get back to you on that. The Jewish cohort also did more than 5 recommendations. It might have been 15 actually, but they did more than 5 as well in what they submitted, about a month ago.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So I mean, I don't we don't
Okay.
want to be a rule breaker, but we just, I guess, pointing out the rules have been broken to some extent by other cohorts. But I did want to, I think Reverend Boney and Director Stowe were on for the Muslim cohort presentation on, was that Tuesday night, I believe? I think it was Tuesday night. So I'll just
Yes.
share my
Yeah,
observations.
that's my recollection. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I thought the way they structured it made sense to start with what they're going to end with. And so they're going to end with recommendations. So they started with telling us what the recommendations are. And I think they were really good recommendations. We probably need to go back to them. And the first set concerned the Montgomery County school system and what they should be doing to combat hate bias, hate incidents occurring against Muslims and students. There was a lot of good recommendations, more around education, people understanding what the difference between Muslim and Islamophobia, I believe they explained. Director Stowe brought out the number of, by question, the number of different Muslim groups that I guess a lot of us take for granted. We think everybody that has a what is it, a hijab is in the same sect or same type of Muslim, but even that is a misnomer. They could be belong to a different set. We also talked about the number of, they also talked about the number of Black and African Americans who also represent as Muslim, which certainly, should bring to our attention that there's some intersection between that group and what we're doing with Black and African Americans in particular. And then they went to the, talk about the, in the faith-based community, in the community at large. And there were a number of recommendations there as well that were, we want to look at to make sure that, we are duly informed about those intersections as well. I think the key things that I came away with are still the same thing. I think the things that we're going to talk about is the underreporting and why that happens. And I think they got into answering that question is mainly the reason that there is underreporting, because nothing is done about it. So as I was saying, and I'll wrap it up in the interest of time, that the Muslim cohort did touch upon a few things that we want to pay attention to as African Americans, albeit the majority of us might be Christians. We do have Black and African American Muslims that we have to pay attention to. Again, we are encouraged to make sure we are looking at, if not adopting, certain intersections that come out of the information from our LGBTQ group, as many of them are Black and African American as well. I would say that, it was long. Some of it was ad hoc because of the number of people that spoke. The way they shared theirs was they shared the time with almost all of the cohort members. And I thought that was great. That's something I alluded to earlier, that we should all have a role in this process, as all of our time and input should be respected to the very end of the delivery of both an oral and final written report. And so we are hopeful that everybody will participate in some way, shape, or form and be credited for their participation. Director Stowe, did you want to chime in on what you witnessed? Because you asked a couple of great questions during the Muslim cohort meeting.
What I was going to say, I guess, at the point was to suggest then that one of the things that this group did do was to zero in on the things that were most impactful in their community.
Right.
And I think that that was a major point for all of our cohorts to kind of zero in on is, and so to that end, we would have situations where our presentation may not in fact be like the one that was held by the Muslim community. However, I think the thing that I took away was that they were able then to really focus on, which, and I hope ours is like theirs in this regard, to really focus in on 2 or 3 issues that I thought were really important, at least they thought important, to bring to the group's attention. And they laid it out in such a way that I walked away with, I believe, what they had intended in terms of what I now believe, based upon this presentation, are some of the most important things as determined and through the filter of those persons who are Muslim in our community. It also, it was clear to me that there is a lot of lack of communication within that community, because a lot of things that was said and suggested that they were not aware of, it's information that is out there. And so I took away, as somebody who's involved on a different level, that we've got to do a better job in ensuring that who we believe are leaders within that community, that we go beyond that list of folks, because clearly these people are part of the cohort, had a number of connection points within the community itself. But when we normally think about, well, who do we call when things happen? For instance, this past weekend, we made calls to a number of different folks. I'm not so sure any of the folks that were on that particular cohort team would have been on the list of people to call. We've got to change that. We've got to make sure that everybody gets the word who has access to different groups within their particular community. Again, this is just homework for me and the job that I do. So that was a takeaway for me. Again, the other thing I mentioned by way of summary of my thoughts is that the idea of the things that they felt through their own eyes, not anybody else's, that they thought were real key issues for their community is what they zeroed in on. And I would hope then that we replicate that in whatever we do on our end. Presentation-wise, we've got a number of ways we can go at it. And clearly the piece that Tiffany offered up was a very creative kind of way of doing that. But at the end of the day, what this is not, I don't think this is a historical perspective just on kind of how we got here only. All due respect to Reverend Boney's point, that has to be the starting point for sure. But I think we've got to quickly kind of roll the tape forward to kind of talk about what's happening in Montgomery County today.
Yeah.
What are the issues today that we believe, from our own perspective, that we believe impact the quality of life of those of us who are Black in Montgomery County, and then the piece that kind of gets us there, the kind of how we got here piece that Reverend Boney spoke to, becomes the backdrop.
Yeah,
but it ought to be something for which we can very quickly move from that sort of page, if you will, to these very specific items that impact us today, and what are they? Again, so thank you for allowing me to have that. I hope that's halfway clear about what I was trying to communicate.
Yeah, I agree with you, definitely. Can't do it in a vacuum. There has to be some evidence-based. And, I would point to, what we do around Juneteenth, particularly this year with respect to AME Scotland Church. These issues are ongoing. Of course, they're historic, systemic in nature. As they pour over into the faith-based community and also into our school system. Even the recurring incidents of hate and racism at school events, which has caused a lot of these fights, is worth looking into, because they too have some historic connection. As we discussed the last meeting, how these things continue to happen and no one seems to address them within our MCPS school. Reverend Boney, you were on the call too, were you not?
Yeah, I was there. I was there.
Any observations you want to offer?
there was just one observation that was different than that you mentioned. That was kind of different for me than what you mentioned. I think both for the Jewish presentation and in my opinion, the Muslim presentation, they kind of focused. There was one main presenter for both. They may have provided small segments where they asked for other cohort members to add something, but that kind of kept the presentation moving smoothly in my view, especially when there is limited time. Other than that, I agree with what Reverend Stowe said, that the presentation has to that they tell their story about who they are in their community, and so it has to start off with who are we, and hopefully we have some things that we can surprise other people with, that we've learned some things about the Jewish community and some things about the Muslim community that we didn't really know about who they are. Hopefully we can do the same thing with some knowledge about Black community that they didn't know who we are. But I agree that we don't want to. The history is a starting point. The history is a starting point of how we got here, but I think we have to have that history there to put the other things into context.
I'm going to add two more things, and then we'll pivot over to Tiffany. One is how, you kind of heard underneath that with respect to the no reporting, underreporting, that there's a level of also intimidation. They feel it's more religious based. And then also I noted, how they said, and I think Reverend Stowe, Director Stowe alluded to this, a lack of information with respect to resources. So they had somewhat of a gripe of not being sufficiently provided information about, grants or certain other monetary resources that could aid them in their mission to combat hate, the security upgrades that we know a lot of the churches and synagogues have gotten, and other investments to protect them in their communities. And so I think, we look at that, and that would inform us on, some of the stuff we may want to put in, or at least, format and how impactful it was. But again, I think it was really impactful for them to have started with the recommendations, and maybe that's something that we want to think about doing.
Mr. Chairman, before we finish the issue real quickly, Madam.
Okay, go ahead.
Real quickly, some of the history that Reverend Boney talked about also needs to include Montgomery County's history, and there's a
absolutely, yeah,
right. There's a rich history of obviously the Black presence in Montgomery County. That also, again, we don't have all day, I realize, right? But that we've got to find a way also to sort of bridge between the historical record nationally, because there is a story, obviously, that is deeply woven into where we are today within the Black community here in Montgomery County. And so I think we would be remiss if we didn't figure out a way to sort of at least to weave a little bit of that in there. Anyway,
well, if I sent out this outline, it's a little long, but in I think paragraph 3, and I might have duplicated two paragraphs 3s, but I wanted to look at the Josiah Henson home and the whole story behind that. I know that's old, but it still has some impact. The issues we had with Lincoln Park School. Again, old, but certainly has a systemic connection, Scotland AME Church. And even the current progress being made at Emory Grove, which is another Black and African American historic site. And I believe there was a school there as well. But certainly the current incidents that we're having, and that we heard from the MCPS listening session, I think would be great if we can lift those from that listening session and kind of prioritize which ones we want to focus on and formulate some kind of recommendation. So Tiffany, almost shifted back over to you.
I am Reverend Boney with the history. Definitely, that is something that we do need to revisit. Director Stowe, the point that you raised, I think is super important as well. I am concerned, however, that there is a piece that may not be getting the attention that I really think it's due. And I think we have evidence of this, even just in my short presentation of what's in my brain. The mechanisms by which we support harm are the perpetrators of harm against us as well. That's a problem. We cannot report and expect action from systems that are actually harming us, and we have evidence of harm, including the school district, including law enforcement. We simply cannot address hate/bias if the mechanisms by which we are supposed to be addressing them harm us themselves. So if I had to raise a point, it would definitely be the systemic side of harm that has and continues to happen. That is how we report. We don't have another mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
You got any specific things you want to point to, Tiffany?
Well, Ron, this is Reverend Boyd. On Tiffany's point,
Yeah.
I think she's right on target. I think
Yeah,
one of my she mentioned that, you know, you had mentioned you want to talk about recommendations. One of my main number one recommendations would be that we have real, not that we need new laws, we just need real enforcement of the laws we got.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
We need
Yes.
real enforcement of the laws we
Yes,
got.
sir.
We have a system that has been designed to either ignore or cover up reports of racism, discrimination, and hate crimes against our people. I mean, yeah, we need to have some action to actually enforce the laws that are on the table.
Yeah.
And
I think
to
this is,
say too, Reverend Boney, that's exactly what I'm saying, but also to acknowledge that our history in this country does come from one of not just quote unquote racist acts, but of significant violence and gutting of the community and its leaders and its mothers and its fathers. I think that's huge.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I can't. I maybe this is where I think, just being a little more focused and specific in how we put these observations and make them relevant to fashioning a recommendation in the school. What is it specifically? What is the reduced information about what we just said that actually is impacting? So we do have laws, yeah, and so our speculation is that, they're not being applied. It seems that way. But I would want to, encourage that we be more specific about which laws. So
Well,
one of the
Lisa,
things that when we look at what we haven't examined is that sector of, or at least that stakeholder, that is our law enforcement and criminal justice systems, those are the stakeholders that are responsible. Our legislature, state, is also responsible for the policy and the making of laws and including criminal laws. So if we are going to make a recommendation, I just think that maybe we want to be a little more specific about which law or laws are not being followed. It could be also the disparity in the schools administration processes with respect to pursuing the resolution of hate crimes, hate incidents, or bias. So MCPS, for example, did this huge audit. Okay, we got results back and they put into place an action plan. So I read it. I didn't read it with a fine tooth, but it seems to be something that could work. Certainly, again, there's not been enough time to know whether or not it has worked because it's just being applied. But I think when you look at the action plans that comprise it, there's enough room in there to critique and determine that this probably is not going to meet the mark. So I would encourage that we look at the actual audit and the actual action plan, because again, I kind of thought that the Muslim recommendations, yeah, they were great, but when I went back and reviewed them, it seems like a lot of them, save the education part, which has got to be a little more specific, given those multiple and varied groups of Muslims, that the system is attempting to do that, and if not has done that, not to defend them, but because there's always certainly room to do better. Of course, the numbers, certainly cry out for that. But I just think that maybe even in their recommendations, they maybe did not even credit what's already there, and just simply formulated a recommendation, which in and of itself might be duplicative. So I'm just saying,
As it comes to
if you got some
MCPS
specific
recommendations,
changes, yeah, go ahead.
yes, yeah, as it relates to MCPS, just that one call alone did give us some qualitative data based on the chat from the students as well as the comment from the
A
student that
lot,
chose to
yeah.
remain anonymous. But Lisa and I were in a meeting with the district, and she had repeatedly given recommendations. Lisa, do you have those accessible? Well, first of all, do you even know what I'm talking about?
Yes, ma'am. So it wasn't, it was a specific school of the BCC, but I have been working through the NAACP to talk about these issues. And they are many, but I think the top three would be the over discipline of students of color. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, the failure to provide, it's a twofold issue. One is the failure to provide accommodations to students of color when they have a disability. And the second part would be to identify a child as having a disability when they actually don't. So we see both trends happening. And then there's,
So,
go ahead.
no, so I was going to say, are you saying that there needs to be oversight there or that it needs to happen differently? That's my clarifying question.
So the answer is there is oversight. We just have to oversee the oversight.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Okay.
So it seems to me then that back to Madam Co-Chair, I think what you were trying to suggest a little early on, I guess, and the thought I had kind of started with is, so is that the formulation of maybe one of those? And I'd say three. Whatever you all think is obviously is fine, but the narrowing down to the trying to focus in on what is it we're going to talk about, because again, even with the systemic piece that you mentioned, Madam Co-Chair, do we have the wherewithal in the context of this opportunity to get that deep? I'm asking.
Yes, sir. I understand the question, and I'm just not sure. What do you all think?
And so with that in mind, maybe we just uncovered two issues to get to the systemic piece, right? And that is to say, if we talk about the over discipline of our students as an example, or the not reacting to their particular accommodations, does that begin to shape something that might talk about, and I don't know what to call it, but something that might talk about then the impact of our public education system in Montgomery County as an example. Again, it's not the right way to say it, but I'm saying, might that be a body of information that kind of puts us there, and find a way to kind of categorize it? And then over to what Reverend Boney said, and I think this is what the other co-chair was trying to share with us, was the fact that if we choose the laws, are there some specific ones that might look at really where that non-responsiveness is occurring for members of the Black community? And I don't know what that is either, but I'm saying, I'm hearing anyway, 2 points that look at maybe beginning of a list of things that we're going to really focus in on as we go forward. Again, just a thought.
And I can just say, for me, I'm hesitant to, police going into schools, whatever. I'm hesitant to want that interaction because of my culture's history with police that continues. So there's just so much loaded into the systems, and I don't really know how to unpack it. But I just want to say that the people that I go to for the help are literally continuing to cause harm. And that's kind of my point. How do we address that piece? And I don't know how deep or how far or how wide we go.
Got it.
Well, I would say this, again, we're working on a if you will, a living document. So recommendations certainly, I think, should have some reference to actual data, albeit that could change, though, particularly if we're looking at the police data, which again forms a res gestae, I mean, a body of stuff that we can look at and say, hey, this is what the trend is. And, because of that trend, this is the recommendation we are putting forth to curb that trend. I think certainly the survey information that Reverend Boney has come up with provides us the same opportunity. And that is to have some body of evidence upon which to base our recommendation. The information also provided by in Lisa's report from the FBI, even the cold statistics would lead us to, some, verifiable recommendations or information that we can base that on. And we still have time to, interview some people even before the oral report is done. I will say this about the laws. I mean, if we're talking about, the common law, in no statutory law of the county and the state, then we are to focus on the ones that deal with hate crimes, and or to the extent they cover bias and hate incidents. I've not seen the laws and, or the administrative, like the student handbook, or because the student handbook in and of itself and some of the rules and regulations promulgated by the school board guide how hate and hate crimes, bias to be addressed administratively. So, as we speak, maybe tomorrow there's some kind of hearing scheduled within MCPS over some incident, be it maybe to the disadvantage of an African-American student. Would that be a system that we want to look at, or a set of rules and laws that we think has some disparate application with respect to African-American and Black students? I've not looked at those. I don't know. Tiffany, do you have any knowledge of those rules and regs that are used by the school system?
One thing that I can say, and I showed it during the presentation, but we didn't really focus on the content. I am on a suspension type of board with the school district that just began, and one of those slides showed the percentage of suspensions based on race and also ability. And it's in proportion to the population. Black suspensions are sky high. We also know that students that are poor, although that's not the focus of this group, but we know who's poor within the county most of the time. They are also a very high percentage. I think 73% of suspensions are free and reduced meal students. Now, if that's not strange, I'm not sure what is. But there is data available. I am concerned that, again, we're tracking these hate incidents. We don't know who defined them as such, but I'm concerned about the harm that the adults are doing as well as the policies that are applied in a manner to be the most punitive to our students. It's just really bothersome.
Yeah, we're with you on that. That's for sure. That's a part of what we're trying to do. But let me just put it this way. Maybe my view is a little too rigid about how we should do this. I just think whenever you say something, especially a recommendation, it should be verifiable, the information. And so we have a set and subset of information that we can formulate some recommendations. However, we don't have to do it that way. We can be a little specious about what we're going to suggest to be done based on what we're hearing from the students in the listening session and in the other session that we want to conduct. But if there's some, disproportionality, as you pointed out, is obvious, and that's been there for years. And there are some administrators and teachers that are directly causing that. Then one, we need to point that out. And I'm not necessarily sure how we or why or would we want to point out the perpetrators or identify the perpetrators. But it could be, as you allude to, in the system of adjudication that exists within NCPS.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's the thing
And
that,
as we know, even though they're beset by set by laws and rules, people are the ones who administer them. So it's still a very subjective process from the point of who decides to administer the laws and to whom the laws are administered to. So I don't disagree.
To be fair, they are working on some things. To be fair, they are working on some things to address that. Again, back to what Lisa said, which is why I went to her. How do you hold the people that are providing the oversight? How do you give them oversight? It's something there's a certain level of transparency that's not happening. Something's missing, but I don't know what that something is.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these cases, they don't even give a reasonable amount of due process to students who accuse of certain things. Tomorrow is your hearing. No, you can't bring a lawyer, which is, gross misinformation. No, your mom or dad can't be there. There's just a lot of different things.
And honestly, what's the long-term impact of that? What does that do to a person's life?
Oh, it's huge. It's very much huge. Yeah.
It's just troubling. I don't, like I said, Lisa knows a bit more. She's been really into it and she gave some great recommendations. So as we're talking about recommendations, Lisa, I hate to put you on the spot, but you had some very clear recommendations and that's why I brought you in.
No worries. Yeah, this is actually what I used to do for a living. So I'm very familiar with this as an education lawyer. I did give recommendations to the MCPS, and I think that the issue is that I think that they know that there are issues. And I think that I think the problem is that their program it's not in theory it would work, but in practice it doesn't, because there are biases from the folks who implement the anti-bias approach. And so I think that's the hardest issue. And then I think the other issue is parent support. And, I can speak from a perspective of being at BCC as a parent leader. There's a lot of white community animus, from the white community when actions happen that they think doesn't belong in their community. So I don't know if I said that right, but for example, last year we had two Black boys were fighting, and this white kid thought he saw a gun, and the gun never existed, but the parents demanded the boys to be expelled and never allowed to come back to school. So it's also the issue of the parent influence and how that affects the school system and the principals.
Did they have a hearing before they were expelled?
No, they actually, so
Or were they expelled? I mean,
one wasn't expelled, but one left on his own because he felt the community was so hostile he couldn't thrive at the school. So he ended up being
A child.
So yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I think it's a bigger issue than just thinking about the staff. It's also, I think, the community, the animus from the community, and also, I think the problem is that they do one-offs and they don't take a step back and look at the disproportionality data, which is something that needs to happen.
And let's be clear, Lisa, you've expressed this before. This is not new. You've expressed this before, which makes me go, and I said this from day one, what are we doing again? Because you've said this before. It's not new.
Yeah. Well, this is major, I would think.
Well, but there's a reason why civil rights attorneys have jobs. I mean, I think this is a problem in America. I don't think it's just MCPS. I mean, for another example,
for sure. Yeah.
I got another parent call me who was in a second grade class, and a white student stood up on a chair and said, "You Black people don't belong here," something like that.
Yeah.
To the other kids, and the school didn't really want to act on it because they said, "Oh, he's only in second grade, it doesn't really mean anything." But I think the message was clear for the Black families that they weren't welcome and that the school wouldn't support an environment that was racially inclusive. And so, another example of another student, a parent went on a field trip with the band, and the parent was told that he didn't belong there by another white parent. And so he said, "No, I belong to this school." And she says, "I've never seen you before." And she wanted to call the police. And so when the Black parent reported to the school didn't want to do anything. So I think the other issue, goes back to the Muslim presentation, that to the extent there are issues, we really need to do a better job of honoring the fact that people file and then come up with solutions that address the concerns. Because at some point people don't want to complain because they know that nothing is going to happen.
So Lisa, do you feel that there's a strong stance that the district takes? I don't see the stance they really take when it comes to anti-Blackness. Is that part of the issue, or is that just a Tiffany issue? In your opinion?
No, it depends, because I think the district is many different levels, right? I think clearly Dr. McKnight has taken a stand against, racism. I think she's been very good at it, but she's so very high in her ivory tower. I don't know that's trickled down to the parts where you see the actual mission of the school system being effectuated. We had another white teacher who said, and they go through the diversity training. So there are these things that are in place, but they're not effective. White said all the Black kids in the school looked alike, so he didn't want to bother to know their names because they just were all the same.
Yeah, just lump them together. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, go ahead.
No, these are just anecdotal stories, so they're not evidence-based, but these are the stories that, again, civil rights folks would say is this is an indication of a problem that continues to be a problem, notwithstanding the school system's very well-intended efforts to create an audit and to come up with remediation.
So Lisa, what is the problem? Is it the acts of violence or something else? And I hate to keep pressing you. So what is the problem?
I think the problem is that there's intentional discrimination going on where students and teachers are intentionally discriminating.
Okay.
The other part is it's not intentional, but there's so many instances of difference in treatment. This is under disparate impact theory, that because your policies, your practices have a certain way, that it disproportionately affects students of color.
Sure. The numbers evidence that, yeah.
So I think that, I think so, and I think they require similar solutions. And I think, talking to this, I had a principal come to me and said, I think that we're too harsh on Black kids, and he was. So I think I think we need to take a second look at, and I think, like you said, that this, I think there are things in play now that haven't been necessarily played in the past. But the problem with these remediations is going to take a few years to see what effect if any, it has on dismantling the vestiges of past discrimination or current.
Yeah.
So Lisa, what I'm hearing is the recommendation for MCPS, the two things you just stated. That's my opinion, but I just want to say that that's what I'm hearing is the recommendation, but I want to hear what everyone else has to say.
Well, let's restate that then, because I wasn't clear, so, you know, maybe some of us, I mean, what is this? Are there two recommendations or one specific recommendation right now with respect to MCPS, Lisa? Is that what you're saying?
I would have to think about it. You know,
Okay.
I have to let it marinate. I think racism is going to happen no matter what. I don't think we can, like, I think someone said the other day, we can't train that out of the teachers. I think we need to be creative about how we deal with racism.
Okay.
I think that one recommendation would be to be better listeners and equate the listening to action. So for the parent who was isolated at a band trip, that person never received any kind of, he was never made whole because the school system didn't want to engage with the parents because they said, well, parents are not our problem. And then the student who was he was involved with this, you know, dispute. He said he was scared to go to school. So the answer was not to send him home. The answer was to reassign the bully or to do something else. But I think that the problem was the school didn't listen to him. And if we're not going to listen to those who've been affronted by racism, the two things are going to happen. They're not going to want to report, or they think their reporting is going to be in vain. And I think so.
Exactly.
And so I think those two things are important to know. And again, I think the Muslim folks said this as well. And actually I had a conference with Jewish leaders yesterday, and they said the same thing. They're tired of talking about anti-Semitism with the school system because it falls on deaf ears.
Wow. They said that.
It's not just one population, but I think
who said that?
I'm sorry. What did you
Who
say?
said that? I'm sorry.
Rabbis and other Jewish leaders in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, did anyone hear that the deputy superintendent was removed today or resigned, or did that happen?
Wasn't that the one that Ron sent over to us? Or no, that was something else. Okay, no.
Oh, the person. Oh, okay. No, I heard
Maybe that's a
something
different person.
The deputy MCPS superintendent was removed.
Okay, that's
something today. I don't know.
If I could refine my recommendation, I think I would say there is an ombudsperson for MCPS, but nobody knows about it. So I think
I use him frequently.
Right. So yeah, nobody else, right? So the idea
who is that?
Ombudsperson whose job it is to facilitate conversation.
What's this person's name?
Tiffany, what's the person's name? I don't know. I have to look.
Ryvel Fitzpatrick.
Right.
Oh, really?
So I use him frequently. However, I would say that MCPS may not communicate him or his role well. I think he works for the Board of Education.
Right.
Not necessarily the school district.
I would actually have more than one ombudsperson, and I also would I think that they have, you know, it's something as simple as having a complaint process. So, you know, if this was a civil rights case, I would say, what is a mechanism in place that people can complain if they're victimized by racial and anti-Blackness or racism? And right now they have this new bias form, but it's not being well advertised. And the other thing is I don't think it's there's no reporting requirement for that. So it's like they keep the data. And I know, for another example, a white parent came to me whose son was participating in racist behavior, and I know that for a fact the principal never reported it. And this was at Walter Johnson, whereby the white tennis team was saying, we think Black people should die. I mean, it was pretty egregious comments that never made it into the reporting system. And that matters because I think if you do have students of color who've been affected, at that school, there's probably this air of racism and they can't quite put their finger on it, but it's these very poignant examples whereby the tennis team was allowed to exchange this stuff. It was on Snapchat, it was sent to the principal, yet that was never reported. And so the other question I have would be, to what extent are we holding a principals accountable for failure to report, and also how are we holding these kids accountable? Because we talk about disproportionality and discipline, but if the white tennis team doesn't get disciplined, but the Black kid does for doing something either similar or less egregious, then how are we achieving justice?
And so I just want to clarify, Lisa, when I say systems bring harm that we report to, I don't mean they're actively doing something necessarily, but failure to act is harm.
Absolutely.
And makes you reluctant to even engage in the reporting process.
Yeah.
And that's the exact thing I was talking about when I said that we need to enforce the laws. I'm not just talking about the legal laws. I'm talking about the schools as well. The enforcement is actually the deterrent that's missing.
That's it.
People actually are accustomed to believing they can do things and nothing will happen. They can do evil and nothing's going to happen to them because, the people that are responsible for enforcing look like them, think like them, and they either cover it up or they just don't do anything.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. The enforcement of what's already there is the deterrent. I think we've nailed it down.
Well, and
yeah and no, I think it kind of cuts both ways though, because even in the enforcement process, it tends to disproportionately impact, Black and African American students.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
So it's it's really difficult because again, it's who's the one doing this? Who's applying the rules and laws? Do they come without bias?
Mr. Co-Chairman, Madam Co-Chairman,
challenge.
Yes, sir.
I'm so sorry. One quick thing. And Madam Co-Chair, you raised this some time ago in this conversation, and I think I mentioned this idea about do we have the time? Because I think
yes, sir. I know.
Your point early on was this whole issue of this systemic piece.
Yes, sir.
It's permeating everything you're saying. I mean, that I'm hearing now that this conversation, but I wanted to see if where we are right now, again, it's clear that Montgomery County Public Schools will be an area that we believe collectively has an impact on our community, whatever you call it, and whatever area you look toward. Are there other impact points in our community? Are we going to talk just about Montgomery County Public Schools? Is that where we are? I'm just asking.
No, we have a survey that was done by Reverend Boney.
Okay.
Reverend Boney,
when will you have Muslim those, cohort did the school system and they did the religious community as well. I would hope we would work in the criminal justice and MCPD because we have some information on that, albeit we've not had a listening session. I don't think we need one. I mean, the hard information is there.
Well, actually, just because the survey was done by, the Black Ministers Conference reaching out to pastors in the church, they definitely did not address that just in terms of the church. They're talking about what's happening in the Black community.
Great.
I do not want to narrow that and to have people think that it's only the faith-based community, because it's not. You're talking about pastors who have responsibility for congregations. They're out there, they're talking about what they feel is happening to their people. So no, it's not just the church.
It's a combination of the two. And I was just saying that's something that we can report on and that we have survey results.
Right.
And that could be a category 2 of what we're talking about and making recommendations based off that survey. And then I would think we want to look at if we're talking about laws that are not being enforced, and maybe we need to define which ones, and then formulate some recommendations around those. You know, we have recurring incidents. I just had this thought that maybe with respect to some of the hate incidents, as they are recurring incidents, I mean, we have a lot of kids that are, you know, would be classified as recidivists, and they continue to bully other kids. We do have, you know, harassment laws as well, you know, that are not really that, well, and harassment law is not clearly cover a lot, some other things, or that it could cover, you know, if you construe it a certain way. So I'm looking at that law, and I'm having a conversation with one of our current state's attorneys on that to see if that would be something that would be useful and to be applicable in this situation where you have recurring incidents of maybe racial slurs or and intimidating behavior. You know, a lot of these things that kind of together form a pattern of harassment, which would, you know, trigger the application of that law, or if not, provide us an opportunity to modify that law so it would have some application. So those are some things. But you know, from what I'm hearing, my thing is that Tiffany and Lisa, you know, I think Joe had talked. I talked to Joe earlier. He had some recommendations with respect to MCPS that you guys, you know, go for it. But I would reiterate that the audit in and of itself is somewhat of an indictment, albeit it's an honest attempt to say, hey, some of these things we're not doing, and these are some of the things we are doing, as reported by a third party, independent party, and that we have taken steps to formulate some action, an action plan to address some of these things.
And
So,
may I just suggest that you know, looking at being at all of the presentations and thinking about this a little bit more, while we are limited to 3 or 4, I think it's important that we have a captive audience. And so we should come up with 50 if we have them and say, here are our top 4, but here are some of the things you can consider. And I think there's nothing wrong with identifying issues because people like me and Director Stowe and others will be looking at the list and then prioritizing our agenda for the year, so that it's not just one audience. It's the ideas is that I will be looking at it. So will, you know, the faith-based community. So will the commission. We'll all be looking at this and making decisions. And I have to say, for the police department, I talked about this offline with others, but you know, there have been not many deaths by police officers' hands in Montgomery County, but I do believe all the victims are victims of color. And so I think it's important not to diminish that. While we do have a fairly interactive police department, I have heard and know of complaints about how they do treat us. And so I want us to keep that in our minds as well. And it might be a great idea to reach out to the commission. I know a person who's working on that to see what they've come up with and anything they can share.
Yeah.
Also,
well, we do have 4 unarmed deaths by police. So
yes,
recent.
With you saying that, Lisa,
go ahead.
With you saying that, I just want to raise two points. The first is there's a video, I'm sure many of you have seen it, from 2019, where there's a white female officer using racially charged language. There's a video that's readily available, and how they treated those boys was just was apprehensible. Boys or men. And the second thing is, I just saw an article today that I probably meant to share with you all, but 20% of the force, I believe, has complaints from last year. I have to look at the title again, but 20% of MCPD has complaints. And let me see if I can find that article really quickly. Just to share that there is a problem outside of murders or shootings by officers.
You know, I've done ride-alongs and I've seen police officers interrogate people who don't speak English as a first language, and I remind them that they have a requirement under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act to ensure that they are effectively communicating, and they don't.
Right.
And
Right.
there's a whole host of issues with the police.
Yeah, they're under resource, understand as well.
Yeah, and so I think that's something we should definitely focus on, and we don't have to do a lot of the work, because I said there was a commission that was created by the county council and the county executive to address issues, and it could be nothing more than just saying we need to advertise more how to complain about the police, because I'm not sure I know how to do that, and I work with them. And how we can reach out to minority communities who don't speak English as a first language. I'm thinking of the Ethiopian community. A lot of them speak Amharic and are terrified of the police and would not, based upon my experience with them, readily complain about their interactions. So I'm looking to some complaint.
Yeah.
I'm just going to show my screen really quickly so you can see it. Right here. This was just in July. %20 of your force with complaints is pretty high. So I just wanted to show that to you all as well. And I put a link to the article in the chat.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's an issue with law enforcement, definitely. But again, that's one of the ways we report. That's who tracks hate, right? So how can we rely on them to be accurate or even objective in their reporting? It's troubling, and I don't know how to address that.
Interesting. Yep.
Well, it's a lot. I mean, maybe it is worth dismantling, but I don't know if we've afforded ourselves enough time to do that. I would mention though, we've not talked a lot about cyber hate crimes and bullying on the internet. Has that come up as an incident or a challenge within MCPS?
Yeah, that's interesting. I was looking at the data. I was looking at the recent actually case law on this, and the answer is absolutely. We're seeing, but this, I don't know if this is a race. I can't track it by race, but certainly we've seen an increase of cyberbullying and cyber harassment. But it hasn't been by race, and I think the idea is the school's trying to figure out how to balance First Amendment rights with the rights of students to be protected and feel safe. There has been some anti-Semitic, I think, some traffic in that way, but I haven't seen. I think when it comes to just cyber presence, there are Twitter accounts from students across the county that talk about Black at, Gaithersburg High, Black at BCC, Black at, and so I find them to be very informative because they give, again, anecdotal stories of what it's like to be marginalized in a community that doesn't accept or appreciate them.
Wow.
I had to say, frankly, on the suspension call on the committee I'm on with the district, I said, respectfully, I'm just trying to get my son out of your school system. I mean, that to me is the answer right now. There is no answer that would make me feel like we've addressed the need for our students to be protected and treated well. And I hate I feel that way, but that is how I feel. And it's been tough. It's been tough parenting a student here in this county.
My goodness.
Oh yeah.
It's just really been tough.
So are we wanting to put any emphasis on victim impact? What are the mechanisms, if any, are in place to deal with the trauma and re-traumatization and maybe ensuing mental health issues? Is
I
that
think
something
that's a good question. That's a good question. If you recall from the students, when the administrator said that he expects to be treated differently, that has to be traumatic.
That's not good. That's not good. No, yeah, you shouldn't have that feeling. not at all.
So, I think this is another good point. We had NAACP had a conversation with Dr. McKnight about mental health, particularly in wake of the pandemic. And NCPS has not done enough in the mental health spectrum. What they do have is a restorative justice team, and they can come in post traumatic event, engage all the parties, and do some restorative justice circles, some therapy in that way. And they have done some good work in that. But as I've seen been victimized, oftentimes they don't want to be in a circle with the person who was accused of being the perpetrator. And so I think when you try to compel the night and day salt and pepper together, sometimes it doesn't work well. And so we've seen feedback that it's not effective in addressing ills. It only makes the sting of racism greater. So it's go ahead.
These RSJ, the RJs, are they social workers? I think it came out that they're not social workers or specifically trained in restorative justice issues.
They're trained in restorative justice. I don't know what their background is. Some of them may be social workers, some of them may not be.
The ones that I've interacted with are teachers or staff that are trained to do the work.
They're trained.
The ones that I've interacted with, I can't say that that's all of them though.
And have you any evidence that they're effective in this work or what?
I think the concept is super effective, but again, to Lisa's point, the application of it may be too clinical, not clinical, but it's almost like a checklist. We did it. There's they don't really read the situation to say what needs to happen. This may not work for this person, but it could work for this person. Like they just kind of apply it as a blanket application. I think that's probably the one thing that I see.
And I don't have any direct experience with it. We had an incident with my son, and the white boy didn't want to participate in the restorative justice circle without 5 different therapists, and I was like, this is not going to be effective. So we decided not to.
5 different therapists.
Yeah, because the parents were claiming he had disabilities, and that's why he was racist. And I was like, I don't want to.
Oh my God.
But to that, Lisa, I do interact with a lot of, youth that do have certain disabilities, and they're very easily influenced to do and say certain things, to have friends. And I think that's why I make the case that we need to dig a little deeper when it comes to this and not just do this blanket thing.
Yeah. But in this instance, it wasn't that.
Oh, I know, girl. Oh, I know.
It was pretext, probably.
I know.
Right.
But there is a pushback from certain populations against restorative justice. They do not want it. They prefer the punitive application. They think that it is anti-white to do restorative justice. So there's pushback.
And I think as we talk about discipline and justice, I want us to be very careful as advocates for the African American Black community, because I think it can backfire. If we're saying justice, and then justice is not equal, then we could be subjecting our kids to further discipline. And
you're right.
So I've seen 5-year-olds being arrested because they had ADHD and were acting up in class.
You're right.
And so I want to be careful that we're not overly encouraging justice. Justice is not.
You said 5-year-olds in the plural. There were several 5-year-olds arrested
in the South. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's happening in our system. I remember the
middle school
incident a couple of years ago. The Grant kid that was arrested. Actually, 5-year-old handcuffed. That was settled.
I gotta go back to Director Stowe. How big do we want to go? I don't even know anymore.
I think we should get the Google Doc going, and then just push out all the ideas and prioritize which ones we think are the most.
I think you're absolutely correct. I think because it's been a marvelous discussion, but I think we still are not any closer to zeroing in on what we want to do on the 30th of October.
Right.
And I think
26.
I-
I wish we had extra
thank you,
time.
thank you. I'm so sorry, 26. I didn't want to give us 4 extra days. We don't have. But I guess my point is that as something you said earlier on, Madam Chair of the Committee Against Hate Violence, and that was that we still can make some suggestions and even recommendations that we even don't get into. We're not required. This is not a college or any sort of grad school kind of presentation. We are members of the community, and we've really been asked to do something pretty simple. For us, it just has to be very complex. But the idea is that it comes down to, again, what is it that we believe are real problems? I've heard 2 things tonight. I've not heard a third yet, but I've heard 2 things tonight that are real problems for us in this community. And it looks like, and maybe the case, and maybe, and I would love to hear the results, by the way, of the survey. There may be something in there that might say that, well, maybe there's another issue that the community believes is, the community believes is important that may come out of that particular source of data. But at the end of the day, right now, we've talked all about the school, and if that's where our sole problem is in this community, and that's what we're saying now, we're saying our sole problem, to the extent that we have been able to sort of bring that out of our discussion and deliberations, is Montgomery County Public Schools, then I'm fine with that. But I want to make sure that we are clear that we are suggesting that that is the only concern that we have, and I don't think that's true, obviously,
No,
right?
sir.
And Director Stowe, that's definitely not what I'm saying.
No. No, Rambo. I didn't say you were there. I'm going to be real clear.
Well, I'm just
Okay, go ahead, please.
voicing my opinion. That's definitely not what I'm saying, and that's definitely not what the survey is saying. And I will send the survey out to you along with
Thank you, Reverend
what I
Bonner.
have, at least kind of a draft, like use Tiffany's words, of thinking on what we can present in terms of who we are and the history. I will send that out tomorrow.
Okay, great stuff.
Yeah, that's great. And then we have my long outline, which we can, it's in Google Docs, any other docs you want to put in that, let's put them in there.
I'm not sure how
then
you get stuff in Google Docs.
Oh, okay. Well,
Reverend Bonner, you can just send us the email. We'll get it in there for you, Reverend Bonner.
Okay.
Okay.
I can do that.
I'll resend it as an email then.
Amen.
We can go with that.
We'll get it in there for you.
I can do that.
Did we say anything about slides though? Anything we can extrapolate from what you did, Lisa, slide wise, or that might be useful? Or
no, because my slide was to the NAACP. What we can do is use the template.
The templates.
But I don't know if we want it. We have to figure out our process. I think Tiffany had a different approach than what I would do, and I heard feedback about we don't want to just read from slides. So if we want to do more of an audio visual, then that's a Tiffany thing, because I don't know how to do that. And Tiffany, you have to teach me how to do that, because I thought that was cool. But
okay, sure.
Yeah, but I don't know how you want to proceed with that. I can do a slideshow, but if you want to do more animation, I also have done slides where I actually will, and I think Tiffany had this too, where you bring in live video, and so we can have video from the listening session. We can have video from a news discussion. We can have prints of, I think in their anti-racist audit, and one of their slides, they have all the different comments from the minority communities about being marginalized. So there are all kinds of ways that we can add flavor to our conversation, because we don't want to be boring.
We can't do that.
Are we going to try to stick to 30 minutes, y'all? What?
I think we can do it.
Yeah.
I think
we do 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I think we can do it. I really do think so.
And if not, we can do 40.
Lisa, we're gonna get a fine.
We're gonna get a fine.
Nobody else did, so I'm just saying, you open the door, Selena. There you go. I'm walking right through.
That was my opinion. I mean, once one group does that, then you say, well, if they did it, it's unfair for you to limit us to this amount of time. So that's I agree. Once the foot's in the door, that's it.
Why don't we do this? For every minute we go over, each member of the cohort pays $1 and we donate it to a charity of our choosing.
That's how you got us $1.
Well, listen, I'm gonna claim foul because I'm Baptist. We don't know anything about time, Bremboni.
Oh my God.
Amen.
Well, I think, you know, we got to get to some point where we're synthesizing this stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can do that by email. Of course, we, you know, can't meet in a quorum. But there are alternative ways we can pull all this together.
Okay, so Ron, we then need a date where if your thoughts aren't in there, we have to cut it off.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Yeah, I think, you know, we can do this without, first of all, does anybody do we think we need to meet again online? I mean, on Zoom?
I don't mind meeting, but I will defer to the group.
Okay, because.
Need to meet because we're not ready.
Yeah, we're not ready. We're not ready.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So you know, again, I would say that we, you know, we would, you know, delegate. I think, again, we have enough information, at least on MCPS. We probably have too much information on MCPS, but given that we gave a dearth of discussion on the faith-based and community and a majority of discussion on MCPS. Between Tiffany and Lisa, why don't you guys begin formulating, you know, the bulk of how we present, at least that portion of our presentation. I think some of the ancillary things like introduction, certainly we should introduce who we are.
Just send that out. You have it. You should have it in your mail.
Yeah, that's in the outline. Yeah, all, you know, just the perfunctory things that we need to do, just and then get into the body. Certainly, we've decided that we need some history, and so Reverend Boney, maybe you also want to, and I'll work in concert with you. And
well, that's what I'm just telling you. I just sent that out.
You just sent it. I just sent it. I got it right now, Bremboni.
Was that the survey?
Yeah, yep.
No, it is.
Okay,
it is,
good.
It is the who we are, the history.
Oh, the who we are piece. Okay, good. Okay. So we got that.
Thank you.
And so we can begin, you know, synthesizing that, looking at it, making any recommendations on that. So there we go. We're halfway there, right?
Nope.
No.
And then, you know, I think we want to talk about you know, how we connect to resources. So if we're pointing out things and how we fix, it's not always just, hey, we need to improve in communications. Yeah.
Access.
What mechanisms do we need to
Yes.
employ? What money do we need to do that?
So may I
and it
say
doesn't
very
have to
simply-
be reactionary. It could be, you know, proactive. So we're doing things already that are designed to reduce hate, if not eliminate it. So Joe is working with these young boys. I think that's a method of how we reduce hate, you know, and maybe he should be looking at more funding. Any of us who are doing the same or similar work, and we've already passed around a grant from the state that's active, and so we know there's monies there for that. But you can always propose certain stuff. So I think we also take advantage, and at least within this opportunity, to say, hey, you know, if we're going to do these things, these are the things we need money for to do. We need financing.
So excuse me.
Yeah.
Ron, going back to our focus group, when you talk about access and what you just spoke about, I don't think any of those district professionals would have ever heard the concerns of the students without a forum like that. So is a concern partially how they interact with people from our community and how they design things that they think will work? Is that something that needs to come up? Because they really don't hear from us enough.
Well, here's the thing, Tiffany, I don't disagree, but if you read the audit and how it was conducted, They did strive to include input from teachers, students, and parents. And so they talked to, which I thought was a small number, about 96 some odd people in that, with those identifiers. Was that enough? I don't know. I don't know. But there was some effort to engage folk at that level to get their input on the outcomes that they had for from the survey, from the audit, which then informed the action items. Did I get a notice about participating? No. Did you as a parent? I don't know. That's
You know, I say that because, you know, when I talk to the school district about equity, I talk about communication equity, access.
Yeah.
I knock on doors. That's just what's going to happen. I'm going to go to your church because you trust your leadership.
Right.
I'm not going to rely on you to come to me. So I just wondered if that's a piece that's missing, because they often design things and want to do things without community input. And I think that results in largely developing things that just don't work for us. Maybe, just maybe.
Well, one of my criticisms of the audit also was it did not, from my standpoint, when I read through it, I could not find where these audits were conducted in which schools. You know,
May I
were they
say,
conducted in the schools where there was the most, you know, a larger incidence of this stuff.
yes, we need to toot our horn, because I don't know if you all know, we had representation from all over this district on our call. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen.
Mhm.
That just doesn't happen. We really need to toot our horn.
Well, you can, but I mean, I think too, you know, what I was suggesting too, Tiffany, is how we need to synthesize that stuff. So I know you know, just saying go back and get what was the most impactful, salient. I thought we were going to also isolate, you know, one of the students that I forget what she said, that it was very impactful. I forget what it was. Might have been one of your students or one of the other students. I'm not sure. But you know, I wanted to suggest that we use some lived experience, you know, some victim information. And I had breakfast with Lieutenant Collins. I don't know if you guys remember that the second Louis who was stabbed to death at University of Maryland about 5 or 6 years ago. And so I had breakfast with his mother this morning, and I tell you, you would be shocked to your core about the number of things that happened to this family who had nothing to do with this. You know, they did everything right. They raised a very successful young Black man who was just commissioned in the Army. In fact, had a beautiful girlfriend, had a bunch of friends, was about to you know, be assigned to Taiwan, you know, 2 or 3 days later. But life was taken. And then there's a story about how there was a huge miscarriage of justice that happened to this family. And then the other thing that it still rings in my ear is the impact, the repercussions. She couldn't get through our 4-hour conversation without crying every 10 minutes. Over something that happened 6 years ago, and certainly she will live with us for the rest of her life. The impact on his close friend, who is now, you know, almost an alcoholic, drinking himself to death because he feels guilty because you know, he turned down the opportunity to be out with Lieutenant Collins and that night, and thought that maybe if he had been there, he could have prevented it. Her daughter, Lieutenant Collins' sister, when it happened, all of her hair fell out. You know, and she was also at that time a student at University of Maryland, and is still suffering. You know, she doesn't have any relationships. She doesn't go out, etc. The father's impacted severely. He's having health issues, and just a number of things. And finally, to know that they did not apply the hate crime law that was on the books at that time. Certainly discretionary when you're dealing with a motion for summary judgment. This particular judge, sided with the defendant. And so while he was reduced from having to face a hate crime, he was convicted of first-degree murder. But the real crime here is that he has the potential of being out of prison in the next 10 to 12 years for first-degree murder. So this is a really challenge. So I thought maybe we would try to weave some of that in, certainly with respect to the criminal justice system and how, even though it's not Montgomery County, all this was happened in Prince George's County. But I think it has some relevance, certainly, when we talk about the disparity and even in the prosecution of these cases. This kid that did this was clearly a white supremacist, but escaped the hate law at that time. So it's about 9 o'clock. And any other inputs?
Super heavy subject matter. I'm hoping we don't walk away feeling any particular kind of way, except encouraged to continue to do the work, because it can get exhausting.
I'm exhausted. It's a lot. It's a lot. And the history in and of itself is it's hard to deal with. But
Reverend Boney, I just peeked at the survey. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, some incredible stuff, isn't it? So can we say then, if we're going to meet again on the 19th, can we do submissions, beginning tomorrow and up until the 19th, and we will also, present some synthesis of where we are on things. Before
so our
the
deadline is the 19th, is what you're saying?
Well, I think we should have a hard copy, a draft of everything, everything, and then we got at least 7 days, a whole week to critique, add, and subtract or whatever. But I think it's doable that we can at least by that time have something to go with, and then a couple of days before our presentation have a dry run of how it would be presented. So,
okay.
Anybody have any other suggestions on how we're going?
Ron, when you say that, I mean, to have that near completed document by the 19th, it means that someone is kind of sending out assignments. It's kind of looking at what the presentation contains, and can you provide this? Can you provide that? Someone has to do that so the pieces are coming together for a full document. For us to just leave tonight and not notice somebody is looking at that, I don't see how it's going to happen automatically.
Well, I thought I mentioned, and maybe Tiffany and Lisa are not willing to do the MCPS piece. Are you guys willing to do the MCPS piece? Lisa and Tiffany? And have us to critique what you submit?
I don't mind, as long as I have a clear direction of what everyone kind of wants to do. I'm fine.
Well, it sounds like you two have all but synthesized down to 2 or 3 issues.
Lisa,
so,
I don't want to speak for you.
I'm worried about like having 4 different versions. So I think we need to figure out our format too. So I 19th. I don't know what we're doing. So happy to give substance. I just don't know what the form is going to look like.
Well, I mean, that's what we're suggesting. So if I was to give you the form, then I don't think it would be a collaboration. So if you want to propose a form, I think we can trust that since you've already done something same or similar, and you two are certainly more articulate, it seems on the issues of MCPS that you would.
No, I'm talking about the form overall. I'm talking about like, are we gonna do it? If it's gonna be a PowerPoint, like, are we gonna, because Reverend Boney did a PowerPoint, Lisa has a PowerPoint, and Tiffany has a PowerPoint. So my question is, which of the PowerPoints are we gonna use as a template? And I don't care. I just need to know.
Well, I don't either. I mean, we've decided to do a PowerPoint. I think what we do.
So what I think I'm hearing is let's get
decide
some
what's in the
content
PowerPoint.
and then we can do the template. We can slide it
Yeah.
into a template.
Yeah, I think
that's-
so too. I think
Yeah.
a template is less. I mean, if you got the content, then you can just choose a template.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So if you guys want to reduce it to 3 things or maybe 4 things, and then we have the survey that we're going to use, and I thought we mentioned that, Reverend Boney, you would lead us since you were the one that instigated the survey and can better interpret, certainly better than I can, that we can also, offer any changes or additions to that once that comes in. I think I mentioned that I would do the criminal justice piece with respect to not only MCPD, but with respect to the state's attorney's office and the court system. So we have those 3 categories. I don't know, Director Stowe, did you want to provide any information on either of these categories, or would you want to do the workplace information that probably your office already gathers?
I can give you that, but again, I hope that, let me just say this to you. The landscape is very different now. I don't know that, at least based on our data, that race necessarily is the #1 issue that we deal with, at least that comes to our door in way of a complaint.
Mm-hmm.
It is more in the area of disability, in the area of national origin.
That's a protected class.
And then as protected classes, and then down to race.
Yeah.
So I don't know that, again, if we would ask somebody what's wrong in Montgomery County for Black people, I don't know that they would say employment discrimination, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they would say housing discrimination. I don't think. As a number one thing that they think is wrong with Montgomery County. You see what I'm saying, from a Black person's perspective. Now, I can give you that information, but I'm saying it's not going to be significant vis-a-vis through who was actually coming through the door filing a complaint today. But if again,
so do you make the case of underreporting, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to ask.
Say it again now.
Can you or do you make the case for underreporting, which I
not really
might be the problem? Okay.
And I just say this because at one point in time I will have told you, not a problem, folks, because that is the issue. No one is. And I don't know what has happened, so I don't know what the issue there. But I don't think it's underreporting or not reporting. I don't think that's the case.
So could it be?
But again, to your question, brother co-chair, if you want me to talk about that, I can give you those statistics. But again, they won't be, again, as I said, significant relative to what you're going to talk about with our schools, and certainly with I don't know what's on the survey yet, so I don't know until I look at it. But what came through there. Now, now we get all kinds of complaints about different kinds of things. So I was going to suggest that maybe there may be opportunities to assist with what you're doing with the criminal justice system, because we get complaints not under our jurisdiction, right, in terms of discrimination. But we do get calls about unfairness in here and certain mistreatment there. That we can comment on. Now, we don't have, again, hardcore data that says this is this and this is that, because it's not our general sort of jurisdictional responsibility. But nonetheless, we deal with those kind of complaints and calls all the time.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of any better person to let us know that than you. So it doesn't sound like it will be robust. So I think we just deal with the 3 categories that we have, unless someone has a suggestion about it.
Ms. Coach, let me go back out again to this very talented group. Is there am I not thinking about a way that I can do this that would make it significant? Maybe I'm not thinking
Well,
it through. I'm asking.
As soon as Ron said your name, I was thinking back. You said something earlier, but I just cannot recall that I thought was quite profound, but I can't think of it now. Sorry.
Well, please help me on that. If again, if it's just I'm not thinking away, because right now, again, my stats don't point to that that's a number one issue in the Black community.
Yeah. I mean, but I guess that would suggest
Black
that our employers are treating us fairly.
Didn't say that. Didn't say that.
The survey was small, but from the survey, it suggests that the 3 areas that are issues are schools, places of education, stores, restaurant, public places,
Okay.
and jobs.
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 Okay, and so you're talking
The
about
hospital/medical centers was not rated highly in terms of racism and discrimination. The courts, surprisingly, and the police were not rated highly in terms of racism and discrimination.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I'm going to question your data because they're telling you only have 40 something people who answered. I also want to know who you asked and how you asked it. So I'm suspicious.
Let's see. The question is, the first question was, did they experience racism or discrimination? Yes or no. And then the second question was, where did the racism or discrimination occur? And the things that they could choose were schools or places of education, stores, restaurant, public places, hospitals, medical center, job, courts, and the last one was police. And they could check more than one, or they could check none.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what do you think, Director? I mean, is any of that fall in your lap or?
Well, I'm going to look at the survey more. Well, at all.
Okay.
Just got it from Doc, so I'll look at that more thoroughly. But I think he's pointing to what it was I just said. I believe in terms of where people are in the community. I mean, unemployment right now today is just a little bit over 1.5%.
Wow.
Now that may be read in many different kinds of ways. I mean, people maybe stop looking, or maybe from people who, whatever. But the point is that that's the number. That's the data. So then you look at then the issue of wealth in the community. Now that's an issue, but again, maybe it's not appearing in the place that we can see. We're supposed to be one of the wealthiest counties in certainly in the state of Maryland, and on the East Coast, it was beyond Prince George's County, I guess, for Black folks. So we looked at a little bit about wealth disparity, but again, it doesn't show up for people to ask somebody. And that's what I'm getting to now. You know, if we were to again do we've already done it through a Ramboni survey. You know, what is the number one issue of racism? And I don't know what that means, folks. Again, so I need help. So,
Director,
I can do the legwork. I just need help thinking it through a little bit.
Yeah. Do you get information on disparities in economic development and the awarding of contracts in the county?
No, I don't, but it is something that I can, in fact, acquire. And maybe it's an opportunity for me and Tiffany Ward to work together on something with her issue in the area of equity.
Yeah.
But again, it's one thing. Now, again, if we are generating these issues, the 6 of us, is this our thoughts, or is it the thought of the community that we are trying to express?
Right.
If it's our thought, I mean, if it's our thoughts, I mean, I don't mean to say make something up, but I'm saying I can certainly go down the pathway of picking out something within our area of influence. But that may not be indicative of what people think in the community. That's what I guess I'm stuck on.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't be. I don't know, but I'm stuck.
Yeah, you know, 47 responses is I admit small, but the Muslim community only have 42 in their survey.
Yeah.
Well, I think their survey was flawed. I'm gonna be honest, because it's
yeah.
the minimus amount. But I'm devil's advocate. I like your survey. I'm just saying that you're gonna get scrutiny, and that's why I'm here to help you.
Okay.
I like it. but I know people.
Are
really-
there any other published things, I mean, we can get from the NAACP with respect to economic barriers for contracting for Black and African Americans? I think there's some numbers. I knew there was a number floating around about the dearth of contracts going to
So
Black.
with you saying that, I don't know if you know this, but I'm participating with the Black Collective, and there's a law that's about to sunset, where they have goals for how many contracts are given to minority-owned businesses, disabled-owned business, etc.
There it is.
But
yeah.
they made the case that it's still needed because minorities, I don't know if it's
They're not meeting the
blacks or
goals.
whatever, are still
Right.
underrepresented. They are
Right.
still not meeting the goals. And
Right.
there was a report due on these goals that the county never produced or got.
Wow.
So if you want to make the case for that, because they're still not giving away the contracts to the targeted groups, even with the bill. And thank you for sharing that, Selena. They're still not awarding the dollar. So there's still something happening. We just don't know what that something is.
And,
Yeah.
and Tiffany, that is a fact. No, but again, that's an issue that we would bring to the table, not that the community is bringing to the table. And again, if we're okay
Right.
with doing that, that is a good place. That is a good place to certainly do what you just said. So if you want to say that's what we take a look at, we can do that because it's there. No question about that. No question.
Yeah, I think we should.
We have made some progress, guys and gals. We have made
Yes,
some progress, but in terms of meeting the goals that you just mentioned, but also just in terms of where we are relative to those who are in business in Montgomery County and who could do business in Montgomery County, we still have got a long, long way to go.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is an African American and Black concern. It's a systemic one, but it's just one, it is one that could be brought to the forefront because we do know about it.
Well, I mean, you could actually reference the Black Collective's information. If they've taken a position on that and they've based that on some data, then we can just incorporate what they've done.
That's Kim, right, Tiffany? Kim? Is that
Yes,
Kim?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Kim Jones.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So what we'll do is, let me just bring the content forward. If it doesn't feel like it matches, or at least we'll have it. You can use it. If not, no worries on our end at all. So let me gather what the data says.
Okay.
I can do that.
Yeah.
And that is a Black wealth issue. That's a lot of different things that we may not even know, but need to be explored. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's systemic related too. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So then
So
we're
I guess we're gonna go on an all-night retreat because
we're done.
we're
I
going
just
on a
want to
all-night-
recap. If you want to recap, I'll try to recap. But what we've said is that you and Lisa are going to do the MCPS stuff. Reverend Boney will do the faith-based and community piece based on the survey. Director Stowe, if necessary, based on the data from the Black Collective, would put a piece together on a bias with respect to economic development and contracting. And then I will focus my work on the MCPD data, state's attorney and criminal justice system as they deal with hate crimes, bias, and hate incidents. So can we begin exchanging documents mid next week? Is that possible? Tuesday, Wednesday? Does that give everybody enough time?
It does for me. I don't want to speak for Lisa, but Lisa,
Okay.
I can jump in wherever needed with that. That's not a problem.
Okay. Works for me.
Yeah.
I just need the
Reverend Bone,
content.
yours is pretty much done. And Director Stowe, I know you always got a bunch of stuff going on.
That's very true.
He didn't even try to pretend like it wasn't true.
I know. So,
Oh man.
so but I mean, but Tiffany is going to pull the Black Collective stuff. And
Well, I'm working with Tiffany, but I'm also going to go right straight to the director too.
Yes, and tell her that I
Yeah.
mentioned it. Yes, sir, because
As shedding, and also
we
get
had-
with Kim as well, just kind of see where we are.
we got a call to
Yeah.
action that we should really be pushing that before the council. So that's a big deal. And nobody really knows, Director Stowe. I just
Right.
happen to know because I was in that room. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, Miss Tiffany, last time this may have been the one that came up. Last time this was discussed, I was happened to be there. We had 2 Black business owners in the audience.
Wow. That's all?
That's it.
Mm.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. If we say it's a problem, it's one thing, but if nobody else thinks it's a problem, but now I will tell you what they have said to me, and I don't mean they to be all inclusive because it's not. What those who did talk to me said to me is that they have just gotten so tired of not getting work and business that they have given up and moved on.
I see.
So they are
Okay.
located here in our community. They think it's a great place to have an office and a place of business. But the majority of the business is done outside of Montgomery County, and particularly not with Montgomery County government.
Yeah.
We have $2 billion worth of
But now,
fine
Reverend Director Stowe, you just dropped that bombshell on us and wonder.
And again, but to your point though, Tiffany, but that you are there, you don't know anything about this. Why is that?
I didn't know. I had no clue. And Councilmember Sales is really fighting for this thing, and we don't know. So
on the 17th of October, that chamber should be packed with those.
Yes, sir.
Right. And I'm talking
Yes,
about Black
sir.
businesses who have it inherent in their own sort of, backyard that they should be there. But let's see who shows up. Now,
where is this going to be?
Listen, we're not going to kind of prove somebody right or wrong. I'm saying that we're going to get the word out so people know. But if they don't come, I'm telling you, people sitting up there on that dais ask themselves one question: is this important? Because it's the same question they asked back when it first came up. With only 2 people sitting out there.
Yeah. Well,
so we have got a case here. And I can't explain what I'm talking about. I don't know why that is the case, folks. I don't know. But what I do know is that this is now public information right now, 17th of October at 1:30 p.m. Now, one can say working folk are working, right? And some of them may not have the wherewithal then to be able to be, but somebody can represent. Right?
I just
it's live streamed. It's live streamed though, right? This is a council meeting,
it's
right?
a whole different thing than somebody sitting in front of you and you look at them and you see numbers than somebody being live streamed. It's not the same.
I would agree, but they're counting those numbers of people who are also live streamed.
Let me tell you,
I just know that a lot of people are working.
And Ron, you know this better than I. Matter of fact, it seems like most of you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It is who you see in that chamber that makes the difference.
No, you're right.
Just straight up.
I would add this too, Director. So you remember former Delegate Herman Taylor, right?
He was one of the persons that was there.
Yeah. So he's been championing this issue for a long time. In fact, his last session that he had in Annapolis included the governor. And the governor made a lot of pronouncements about, doing some things to curtail the blatant discrimination we're seeing in the awarding of contracts, at least at the state level as well. So I don't know how much information Herman might have with respect what goes on in Montgomery County, but he is a Montgomery County contractor as well. He would love to, share what information you might need.
I just put all the information into the chat. You can see in there, it'll tell you everything. So that would be great, I think. But Director Stowe, people just don't know. They literally don't know this is happening. It's not publicized well. They don't even know it's an option. They just think that's just what I get, and well, that's it. So
all right.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's 9:24. Everybody is, loaded up with more work. Let's get it done, gang. We really appreciate everybody's input. Sometimes things get a little heated, but that's what leadership is about. We rise and we battle and the best of us comes out and the best information comes out as well. And I think none of us take it personally, but most of us take it as certainly more, I guess, if you will, push to do the best we can. And so I feel pushed. I feel obligated more than anything that we need to do something impactful. And, the same would apply to the final written report when we get to that. So thank you, everybody. Co-chair, you want to close us out with anything? Or?
Motion to adjourn. I want to say
Hey.
thank you all so much. This is not easy work.
No, it's not.
I second the motion.
Hey, all those in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.
I'll see y'all
everybody.
there.